Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Shraddha Sureka. I'm a cornea and anterior segment surgeon based in Mumbai. And the instruction course that we have today is basically based on whole food plant-based diet and how it impacts health. I'm going to start on what impact does a plant-based diet have, a general introduction of the entire concept, and then my co-instructors would take it forward. I'll do their introduction in some time. Just a small disclaimer, the nutritional aspects are learned from the resources which are freely available online, and I am not a trained nutritionist. We always look at higher varieties of, OCT angiography, the newest femto machines, the newest anti-VEGFs for the patients, because we feel that we should give the best to our patients. But, there's an important thing about the everyday life of our patients that we fail to educate them about or speak to them about. And this aspect is about food. Now, what happens is that we think that these big technologies and all these are going to give the best to my patient. But it's actually even the small choices that they make in their day-to-day life, which will have a big impact on their health and their eye problems also. So what's an ideal diet? So an ideal diet should maximize your health and well-being. It should minimize risk of chronic diseases, and it should meet all your need for essential nutrients. And it should be satisfying, appealing, and acceptable. It should be ecologically sustainable and be ethically justifiable. So because our instruction course is the plant-based diet, is it the optimal diet? So let's understand what a plant-based diet is. So plant-based diet would exclude dairy, meat, poultry, seafood, eggs, and honey. Now, this is essentially the so-called vegan diet, and which is very common and famous amongst the hip people around. But does all of this have a reason? So plant-based diet essentially can include any kinds of legumes, leaves, bulbs, roots, mushrooms, fruits, whole grains. But the question I ask is, what are the health benefits of actually following this fad of a vegan diet? And why is there a health benefit? I'm a doctor. I need logical answers. I need scientific answers. And the third question is that, is it the vegan diet that I should follow, or is it something else? We are saying that you should follow the whole food plant-based diet. So what's the difference between the whole food plant-based diet and the vegan diet? So question one, what are the health benefits of a plant-based diet? Let's look at some studies like the Adventist Health Study 2, the EPIC study from UK, and another study from Taiwan. The summary would be that the studies have found that the risk of developing diabetes was lower in vegetarians, near vegan men and women. Then the risk of hypertension was also lower among vegetarians. They found that the risk of cardiovascular disorders were lesser in vegetarian. And they found that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease was lesser in vegetarians. Cancer was much lesser in vegetarians. And breast cancer especially was lesser in vegetarians. So there's a lot of clinical evidence which suggests that there's lesser incidence of all of these diseases on a plant-based diet. But what is the logical explanation? Why could it be so? So the chronic diseases are driven by inflammation, oxidative stress, lipotoxicity, and dysbiosis. So in terms of inflammation, they found that cardiovascular
disease... Could you be on mute, please, Dr. Anand?
Okay. So in terms of inflammation, it's been found that cardiovascular disorders, by having animal products, you weaken the fibrous capsule because of the inflammation, and it increases the risk of rupture of the plaques, which leads to your cardiovascular events. Then diabetes, inflammation in the body interferes with insulin signaling, and it increases insulin resistance. Cancer. It's known that inflammation can promote tumor growth and it triggers loss of proteins involved in DNA repair. Next thing is the oxidative stress. There is damage to proteins and DNA and cell membranes, and it has been found that people who are vegetarians, the antioxidant levels in them are higher. Then lipotoxicity. Lipids deposit in the organs and our muscles, and they also cause cell damage, mitochondrial dysfunction. And it's been found that vegans have lesser lipids in their body. They're not overweight, they're not obese, they have lower saturated fat intake, and they have lower intramyocellular lipids. And dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is basically the integrity of the gut barrier is compromised by having animal products, which reduces the absorption of essential nutrients. It reduces your immunity. It increases the inflammation in the body. So vegans, they found that they have the most favorable gut microbiome. So there's least trigger for inflammation within the body. So all of these 4 drivers of chronic disorders, you see that by logic, they are lesser in people who are on vegan or vegetarian diet. Now, the next thing is plant-based diet enough? Is the fad of veganism enough? It's not enough, because we propagate whole and minimally processed food. Let's see why. So whole food basically includes foods, which are recognizable. You can actually see what is, what is made what is the final dish made up of. And it should not have any refined foods, added sugars, white flour, or processed oils. Now, you can look at this picture. Both the pictures are vegan foodstuffs. But in the left, we can see that it's whole food, and in the right, it's processed food. So let's understand why go vegan. We go vegan because there are disadvantages of animal products. They have multiple things in them which can cause damage to our body. Second thing is dairy. Dairy has 50% saturated fat. It is linked with insulin-like growth factor, which causes insulin resistance. Also, it has antibiotics, pesticides, bovine growth hormones, bacteria in it, which is harmful to our body. Next question is, why whole foods? So whole foods have the advantage of being calorically dilute. It has low glycemic index, high water content, it's anti-inflammatory, it has high antioxidants, and it has very high fiber. So this very high fiber in the whole foods increases your satiety, immune function, and improves your gut flora. It decreases the risk of GI disorders, reduces cholesterol levels, reduces hormonal imbalances, and it stabilizes your blood sugar. Now, orange is a whole food, while orange juice would be a processed food. Brown rice is whole, and white rice is processed. Steel cuts, all oats will be whole food, while oat cookies will again be processed food. Dalia will be a whole food, while brown bread or idli will be a processed food. If you look at this picture, both of the pictures are plant-based foods. But on the left, you can see that this mac and cheese, the vegan mac and cheese, the fries, all of those are highly processed with additives, added sugars, and a lot less nutrients. Well, if you look at this plate, it's full of vitamins, minerals, and it's much more nutritious. So why should you avoid the processed food? That's because it has excessive sodium, it has refined carbs, it has trans fatty acids, and when you cook at a very high temperature, it has byproducts which are harmful to our body. Also, we say that we should not have oil. Why? Because oil is 100% fat. It increases your insulin resistance. It has zero fiber, low nutrients. It increases the sludge in the body, which raises the BP. It causes weight gain. It's high in its calorific value, and it's pro-inflammatory. So just adding that, could the cyclone in Maharashtra be related to your dinner plate? So there's a big impact of the animal husbandry industry on the environment also. And it has been found that the plant-based diet causes minimal damage to our environment. So that's also something that we need to think upon. We went through a very bad pandemic in the last few months. And we are facing another pandemic-like situation with cardiovascular disorders, diabetes, obesity, and PCOS on the rise. So can plant-based diet actually have an influence on diabetes? We have Dr. Anand Kumta, who will be speaking on this topic next. And Sir is a retina specialist based in Malad West. He started the Kumta Eye Clinic, and this was one of the first hospitals in Mumbai, which was in the suburban area, which was a specialized retina center. Sir has trained from KEM Hospital and then with Dr. Nagpal in Ahmedabad. He's one of the few people who has multiple international degrees like FRCS and FICO to his name. Sir specializes in retina surgeries, managing complications of cataract surgery, and managing complications of retina surgeries. He also is a very staunch proponent of the whole food plant-based diet. And Sir has had multiple patients whom Sir has explained the diet and they've had an improvement in their overall health and their eye condition. And Sir is going to share those. I'll just quickly add here that we'll have Dr. Rohit Modi who will talk about ocular inflammation and diet. And we'll have Dr. Sharang Vatikar, who's going to speak about atherosclerosis and diet. And we're going to have Dr. Anuradha, who will bust the myths of regarding plant-based diets. So I acknowledge Dr. Kumta, Dr. Rohit Modi, and all the stalwarts in the field. These are the few references. And I'll ask Dr. Kumta, sir, to please take over from here. Thank you. Kumta, sir, you want to start?
Yeah, just looking for my. Is my screen visible?
Sir, your screen is visible.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak at a meeting like this, especially on a very offbeat topic. So all of us see patients like this one, which are very bad diabetic macular edemas with a lot of lipid exudation, and it's very frustrating treating such patients because you give them multiple anti-VEGF injections, intravitreal steroids, and somehow you're never satisfied with the treatment and the outcome. So my thought process about diabetic retinopathy changed a lot about 6 years ago after I saw this one patient. So I must share the story of this patient. So this is a 58-year-old patient who was diabetic since 20 years. And he came with recent diminution of vision for the last 1 month. He had multiple PRP sessions, but he had never had macular edema in the past. So this is how his fundus looked. He had been treated for diabetic retinopathy. He had new macular edema this time. And this was the OCT scan showing a lot of cystic spaces here. So over the last 3-4 years, the patient had gained 30 to 40 kilos of weight due to increases in doses of insulin. And actually, he could not even reach the slit lamp, the headrest. So because of his abdomen, and I sarcastically commented that he had put on so much weight that only bariatric surgery would be able to help him. I saw him a month later, and he had actually taken my advice and undergone bariatric surgery when I didn't mean that he should undergo bariatric surgery. So within a month, this patient lost 20 kilos of weight and became nearly non-diabetic, and he's only on oral metformin. The resolution of diabetic macular edema was very, very dramatic. A month later, it was totally gone. This is a left eye, which was totally gone. And overall, over a period of few months, he totally lost 60 kilos of weight. Many years later, also, I've been following him up. He has absolutely no diabetic macular edema at all. So weight loss of up to 1/5 of body weight reverses diabetes in majority of type 2 obese type 2 diabetics. So some thoughts after this case. One is that bariatric surgery did not cure this patient of diabetes, but weight loss did. This weight loss could have been achieved very easily on a whole food plant-based diet. And the diabetic macular edema was reversed by a reversal of the diabetes, not by pharmacological control of blood sugars, which was already happening with immense doses of insulin, non-physiological dose of insulin that were going on. In fact, the very high dose of insulin is a pro-inflammatory hormone, and that was actually contributing to his diabetic macular edema. So I'm going to talk only about type 2 diabetes. And by definition, type 2 diabetes is caused by insulin resistance, which means that the insulin levels are normal in most of the patients. And this has been found to be, Shraddha has already alluded to this. This is caused by something called as lipotoxicity, that is accumulation of ectopic lipids in skeletal muscle, liver, and finally even in the pancreas. And this is a major factor in the etiology of type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. So this is actually the most important slide in my talk. This is a muscle cell that you can see here. This is the extracellular space. These are glucose molecules which are trying to get into the cell through these channels. These are the insulin molecules, and these are the receptors on the cell membrane surface. So what happens is that the insulin binds to the insulin receptor, causes signaling, which causes these pathways to open and the glucose molecules enter inside the cell and nourish the cell. So something happens in type 2 diabetes, that the insulin is enough, it binds to the insulin receptor, but something happens and the intracellular signaling does not take place, which is why these channels cannot open, glucose cannot get into the cell, and you get all the other symptoms of diabetes. So this has been now proven to be due to increase in lipids, especially plasma-free fatty acid levels in the blood. And diets rich in saturated fats cause obesity and insulin resistance. And in late stages, when fat accumulates in the pancreas as well, you have beta cell apoptosis and death of beta cells. So saturated fats are mainly obtained from meat and milk, and some other dangerous fats are also obtained from vegetable oils. This has been proven with sophisticated techniques about intramicellar lipid. So there have been quite a few studies which have proven that a whole food plant-based diet can actually improve diabetes to a great extent and reverse it in many patients. So I'm going to talk about only 2 studies. This was a very elegant study done by this Dr. James Anderson. What he did is he took 20 lean men receiving insulin therapy, and all these men received controlled diets for an average of 7 days, followed by a whole food plant-based diet. It was a high carbohydrate, high fiber diet, which meant a low fat whole food plant-based diet. Now, these were the 20 patients that you can see here. For the first, the control actually were the same patients themselves on their previous diet. And these are the insulin doses that they took. After a few days on the whole food plant-based diet, you can see that the insulin doses have gone down very often to 0 in many patients, and overall about 60% decrease in the dosages of insulin. And how much time did this take? This chart will tell you that it just took 2 to 3 weeks for this thing to happen. So imagine now, look at this patient 15. He was on 32 units of insulin. At the end of a few days, he was on 0 units of insulin. And it took how many days? It took just 16 days for this reversal. And the insulin doses came down. And the best thing was there was a dramatic lowering of serum cholesterol. You can see all the values on the right side. And the average came down from 206 to 147. Another elegant study from Dr. Joel Furman, who took 13 adult type 2 diabetic US women, and he put them on a whole food plant-based diet. And you can see the individual HbA1cs coming down over a period of 7 months. In fact, most of the gain was achieved in the first 3 months and then maintained. So it dropped from 8.2 to 5.8 average, and 62% of participants receiving reaching normoglycemic levels. And the medications dropped from 4 to 1. Another Dr. Neil Barnard, who's one of the rock stars in this movement, showed that 71% of patients with type 2 diabetes could stop their oral medications in 26-day program. Coming to some of my patients, this was a patient who was on 50 to 60 units of insulin. This is of course a very old photograph, and this is a recent photograph. And she lost 30 kilos of weight in 1 year on a whole food plant-based diet. Insulin was stopped, 75% of oral medications were stopped. This is another young patient of mine who had lost vision of one eye due to PDR. And he was so scared that he went on a whole food plant-based diet, and he was on massive doses of insulin. He lost 25 kilos in 6 months' time. And he used to have CME in his only seeing eye. And this CME continues to get better and better. And now he requires less and less frequent injections. And the intervals between the injections have also become much longer. So his HbA1c dropped from 13 to 6.4, insulin dosages were stopped. This is another patient of mine who only by diet control, this is in a period of 2 to 3 months, he did not take any other medications. He did not only on diet and exercise. You can see that the lipids have are disappearing from the center of the retina, both the eyes. Historically, there was another Dr. Kempner who in the 1940s and 50s was very, very renowned and used to get referrals from all over the US, especially for very bad patients with kidney disease and malignant hypertension, and also diabetics with a lot of retinopathy. And he put them on a whole food plant-based diet, mainly of rice and fruits. And it was very low fat, and most of his kidney patients, their creatinine started going down and their retinopathy actually improved as documented in those days. So diabetes is a systemic disease. How can we expect a systemic disease to treat it with only a local treatment such as intravitreal drugs or laser? So the missing link is actually excellent systemic control, which is managed with the help of lifestyle. So this has already been covered, so I won't go through this. So I must add here that it's very, very important to stop dairy if you're a type 2 diabetic, or for that matter, even a type 1 diabetic. So it's important to supplement with a few things which are deficient in every patient, whether non-vegetarian or vegetarian, that is B12 and vitamin D3. So I'll just wrap up with a few of my thoughts about medical treatment of type 2 diabetes. Am I running late, Shraddha?
Sir, we can wrap up quickly, sir.
Yeah, so about a couple of minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So there's a downward cycle of medications and insulin. That medications cause weight gain and that worsens diabetes, and then you go for more medications. So this cycle can be broken only with the help of good lifestyle. So just busting a few myths, I'll not take more than a minute, that diabetes is not caused by excessive carbohydrates, but it's caused by high saturated fat in the diet. Although most people will tell you it's a progressive disease which gets worse with time, most cases are actually reversible with diet and lifestyle. And medications may be effective in controlling the symptoms of diabetes, but they do not do anything for the complications. They have a lot of side effects as well. Now, this is one thing, one myth I would like to bust is that you should decrease carbohydrates to control diabetes, like go on a Atkins or a keto diet. But actually the fact is that you should be decreasing fat and consuming carbohydrates from whole foods. So you should lose weight on a plant-based diet, exercise, supplement, and please go through these books, because most of us doctors are not trained in nutrition, and we have the same myths that which will be busted by Anuradha later, that all the common lay people have. So we should educate ourselves, and these are the resources which are also shared by Shraddha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kumta, for the wonderful presentation. And anybody who sees this presentation should take note that I think it's our responsibility to sow the seed of this diet or this concept in every diabetic patient who comes into our OPD, and take an extra minute in your OPD, because if the patient may not be diabetic, he'll definitely have a relative who's diabetic. So let's, take that home from here. So the next speaker is Dr. Rohit Modi. Dr. Rohit Modi is a retina specialist based in Mumbai. He has trained from LV Prasad Eye Hospital, and he is also a staunch proponent of the whole food plant-based diet. So Dr. Rohit would be speaking about the role of diet in ocular inflammation. And over to you, Dr. Rohit, to take this forward.
Is my slide visible?
Your slide is visible.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Maharashtra Ophthalmic Society and Dr. Ragini ma'am and Dr. Swapnesh for giving us the opportunity to present a different topic in the prestigious annual conference of Maharashtra Ophthalmic Society.
Thank you, Dr. Rohit and Sumita. Thank you so much. It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are going to cover today how diet can help in controlling ocular inflammation. So certain disclaimers that I'm not a dietitian and there are no financial interest. Well, the whole food concept has been explained before. I came across this paper of 2 years back, where the uh, psoriasis was completely eliminated using a plant-based diet, and that was something which was amazing. In fact, I have seen the reversal of psoriasis patch in one of my close relatives also, who shifted to a plant-based diet. Another concept is of hypernourishment protocol by Dr. Brooke Goldner, which is mostly focused on raw salads and green smoothie. And she herself reversed her own lupus. Plus, she has published numerous case reports and case series on reversal of lupus nephritis and other autoimmune conditions. Now, we understand that arachidonic acid is a major source of inflammatory mediators. The exclusive source for arachidonic acid is cell membranes of animal source foodstuff, and here we can see the arachidonic content of different animal based foodstuff. Well, this arachidonic acid ultimately gets converted into inflammatory mediators, which causes all inflammation. Now, let's say we take a high high intake of omega-3 fatty acids such as flax seeds or chia seeds. Well, this gets converted into alpha-linolenic acid, which ultimately forms anti-inflammatory mediators. Now, if we have a diet which is low in vegetable oils, animal fats, and processed foods, or it is devoid of that, so the enzyme is completely directed towards the alpha-linolenic acid or the omega-3 pathway, that is the anti-inflammatory pathway. And that's what Dr. Brooke Goldner or Dr. Joel Fuhrman recommend. When you have enough amounts of green leafy vegetables, you're on a whole food plant-based diet, eliminating all the inflammatory food stuff, most of the delta C6 desaturase is focused on converting alpha-linolenic acid into anti-inflammatory mediators. And various papers have been published, like this one was by McDougall et al., where they show that a very low-fat vegan diet in subjects with rheumatoid arthritis showed a significant improvement in the inflammatory score. Like the C-reactive protein was decreased by 16%, RA factor decreased by 10%, and weight was also decreased significantly. And the best part was that the diets which are varying in a low glycemic, high fiber diet and a low protein diet could mediate inflammation by decreasing the pro-inflammatory gene expression and improving the insulin sensitivity. Now, many people argue that it is the weight loss which is causing decrease in inflammation. In fact, they had shown that the inflammation decrease was independent of the weight loss. So weight loss obviously caused decreased inflammation, but there was certain added benefit when the weight loss was due to whole food plant-based diet, especially which is focused on raw vegetables. Another important concept in autoimmunity which we have to understand is that when a patient is taking a processed food diet, a diet which is high in animal proteins, there is, it is devoid of mucus barrier, which is a fiber-free diet. And because this mucus barrier is, not present, there can be translocation of certain microbiome, which can cause autoimmunity. Whereas a fiber-rich diet will restore this barrier. So when you are having an anti-inflammatory diet, there is a restoration of this barrier, which ultimately prevents the translocation. And this has been proven that there's a translocation of gut pathomicrobiome, which can drive autoimmunity in humans if there is a fiber deficient diet. And so these things have shown that we can reduce the inflammation of patients with a whole food plant-based diet. Well, the diabetes topic has been extensively being covered by Dr. Kumta. I wouldn't deal much with that. So in conclusion, whole food plant-based diet has an anti-inflammatory effect, It can be used as an adjunct tool in our hands to help patients in terms of controlling inflammation along with standard treatment. Obviously, more data is required with respect to the eye. In some of my patients, obviously monotherapy I have not tried. I'm a bit not very certain how to go about it, but it has always had a big adjunct role in my patients with uveitis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rohit, for the excellent presentation. And it opens up a lot of doors for further research on how this diet can be useful for patients with uveitis. So lots to explore. The next talk would be by Dr. Sharang Vartikar. He is a retina specialist based in Thane, and he is a fitness freak. And he is going to speak about the role of whole food plant-based diet in reversing systemic disorders. Over to you, Dr. Sharang.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you see my screen?
Sir, your screen is visible. You can continue.
Thank you. Yeah, a big thanks to the Moscon team for allowing us such a platform to give this talk. Again, a disclaimer that this is we are not an expert nutritionist out here, and if you want to change your diet, you do need to consult one. And big thanks to Dr. Anand Kumta for his immense guidance. So I was just wondering why 3 retinal surgeons talking about nutrition today. I mean, what's the link? And something just came to my mind. I guess we have a natural tendency to die late. So maybe there's some link there after all. So let's see if a whole food plant-based diet is an optimal diet. Now, there are certain blue zones which have been identified all across the world. Now, these are geographic areas which have the lowest rates of chronic disease and greatest lifespan. Now, if you study these, the population here, then apart from the other things, what you find very striking is that they follow mostly a whole food plant-based diet. Now that probably adds, gives a big factor in treatment of certain diseases. And these diets are appropriate for all stages of life. So it's not that, only adults can do it or something of that sort. They are appropriate for all stages. And if you don't believe this, then you can very well believe these people who are, the best in their field as far as sports is concerned. Now, if such athletes are able to give their performance on a whole food plant-based diet, I don't think there's any doubt left whether it is optimal. You get all kinds of sports. If you see endurance running, if you get football, if you get kickboxing and weightlifting, and it's just not the strength. If you want to go for looks, you have those two covered as well. And there are a whole lot of physicians and dietitians who are already practicing whole food plant-based medicine, and daily more and more are joining the gang. So what is it that makes this diet so beneficial? Well, you have to understand that all calories are not the same. So a 500 calories of oil, cheese, meat, or fruits and vegetables would look completely different. So you see that fruits and veggies are definitely going to satiate us far earlier with lesser calories than what meat and dairy products would do. Plus, all carbs are also not the same. So if you go for whole food carbs, definitely they are going to be beneficial, but not refined ones. And as already has been discussed, some of the major factors which are all, good parts of the food component are either high to very high amount in plant-based, while almost non-existent in meat or poultry. And the same, anything that we don't require is in large amounts found in the meat and poultry, while it is almost absent in plant-based food. So if you look at the individual diseases, right, let's start with diabetes first. Now, which seems natural to you? You think this is natural, or you feel this is natural, right? I mean, this is something weird, but this is what we have been doing for ages together. It's a very simple thing. Cow's milk is not intended for humans. It is made for a calf. It's no surprise that 65% of the world's population is lactose intolerant. The logic is that partially digested milk protein remains in the GI tract, and this can easily pass into the bloodstream via leaky gut. Dr. Rohit has already touched upon this. Now, immune system recognizes these as foreign particles and produces antibodies. Now, the thing is that amino acid chains of milk proteins are quite similar to the pancreatic cells. So the antibodies which are against the cow's milk will also attack the beta cells and can actually lead to type 1 diabetes. Now, their studies have also shown this association with a specific immune response to beta casein found in cow's milk. As far as type 2 diabetes is concerned, Dr. Kumta has very lucidly explained how lipotoxicity causes the entire problem, and the saturated fats present in animal foods are largely responsible for this. And a simple diet of whole food plant-based can cause reversal of diabetes quite significantly. These are some of the resources that you can refer to. If you look at the cardiovascular disease, then a very landmark paper was published by Dr. Calvé-Lansing, and he said that, he showed that a diet which is plant-based and avoidance of all oils, fish, meat, and dairy products can actually reverse cardiovascular disease, and an obvious reperfusion was seen in patients. So again, obviously, there is a definite role of this diet as far as reversal of heart disease is concerned. Autoimmune diseases also touched upon by Dr. Rohit, and there are multiple autoimmune diseases. The logic remains the same. This is what is known as molecular mimicry. When you get all these animal proteins getting into our body, you will find an antibody, formed against these. And some cell or the other of our human body is similar to these, and that the antibodies go and attack that. And that causes diseases like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. And studies have shown this specific proteins which the antibodies are made against. Not only these, even in inflammatory bowel disease, animal proteins association has been shown, along with the association of meat and cheese to risk of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And if these same patients are given a gluten-free vegan diet, then they have shown considerable improvement in their symptoms. In fact, these diets also help in reduce the recurrences of these episodes. Now, Dr. Brooke Goldner was herself diagnosed with lupus nephritis, and she had stage 4 renal failure at just 16 years of age, and doctors had predicted not more than 6 months of life for her. But she shifted to whole food plant-based diet, and just after 1 year, she could discontinue all medications, and now she's completely off medicines. And she has written many books against autoimmune diseases. Venus Williams, she managed to reverse her Sjogren's syndrome with this diet. If you look at the kidney, then there's a significant role of dietary acid, which goes and loads onto the kidney. And the acid load is maximum for all animal-based products as compared to fruits and vegetables. Cancer is no different. Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, the G-bombs, are supposedly the best anti-cancer foods. Why? Because they detoxify carcinogens, they cause cancer cell death, cut off blood supply to growing tumors, and repair defects that can lead to cancer. Many studies have shown the benefits of such a diet in prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, breast cancer. And we cannot leave this topic unless we cover COVID-19 also. Just a recent paper was published which studied the dietary patterns of nearly 3,000 frontline healthcare workers from 6 different countries. And what they found that all the healthcare workers who were on a plant-based diet had a significantly lower odds of developing moderate to severe COVID-19. And in fact, those with low carb and high protein diet, like the paleo or the keto diet, had much greater risk than those who didn't have that. So to conclude, currently we are going in this way. We have all multi-specialists and each one doing his own thing. But the fact is we are missing out the bigger picture. We are looking for single causes, single biomarkers, single diseases, trying to find that single drug which can treat everything. But we are actually moving away from looking at the patient as a whole. We are treating the symptoms, but we are ignoring the cause. Diabetes is not due to deficiency of anti-diabetic medications. Hyperlipidemia is not due to deficiency of statins. Similarly, DME is not due to deficiency of anti-VEGF. And Dr. Anand Kumta has excellently shown this in his presentation. What we need is a more holistic approach. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. I guess it's time to relook this sentence. Let's start eating whole, unprocessed or minimally processed foods and stop eating crap. Let me end this by sharing my personal experience. Now I'm completing nearly 3 years of being on a plant-based diet. I didn't start the diet because I wanted to become more healthy. I stopped eating animal products because I couldn't have the thought of this being on my dinner plate. And if you look at it, the animal industry everywhere, you take the chicken industry, you take the pork industry, you take the beef industry, you take the fish industry, the egg industry, dairy is probably the worst. Wherever you look, it's just mayhem out there. We are what we eat. So when we have such a wonderful options out here, why do we want to go to something where there is death and cruelty involved? This is my, I have been following my the blood records over the past 3 years, and I'm happy to say that I have. It's been a wonderful experience with all my parameters being absolutely well controlled, just on a whole food, rather on a plant-based diet. I don't even strictly follow whole food, but I try to do that as much as possible. The only time when I didn't have supplements was when my B12 and D3 started dropping. So I guess that's the only thing that we need to do. And once that is done, the values have recovered quite well. And this is how I was like 3 years back. And this is where I am right now. I think I'm doing pretty okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharan. That was an excellent presentation and lots to think about. And for anybody who has any doubts about practically following this diet, you should contact Dr. Sharan and he'll give you practical tips for following the diet. So the next presentation is going to be by Dr. Anuradha Iyer, and she is going to bust some common myths regarding veganism and plant-based diet. So Dr. Anuradha Iyer is an oculoplasty surgeon. She is trained at LV Prasad Eye Institute and she currently practices in and around Thane area. Over to you, Anuradha. She's a vegan since Feb 2018 and she's an avid animal lover. So it was about time she became a vegan. And she has multiple publications and presentations all over to her credit. But I think this topic is quite close to her heart and she's going to clear out a lot of myths for us today. Over to you, Dr. Anuradha.
Shraddha, my slides are visible and am I audible?
You are audible and your slides are visible.
Great. Thank you, Shraddha, so much for making me part of this talk with such a wonderful line of speakers who've been very inspiring in my own journey. And I like the post-COVID world because it seems I'm talking more of veganism on AIOC and MOSCON, and I'm talking of oculoplasty on Insta and Facebook. So it's a nice change. So while the topic speaks of plant-based food, I thought I should stick to myths regarding veganism. Now, I was a vegetarian before turning a vegan, and some of the comments that I hear from people who are against those of us who speak of this diet, who are proponents of this diet, are the same thing. They keep pointing at their rudimentary canines and complaining that thousands of plants are being killed on a daily basis. Now, I turned vegan in February 18 out of purely ethical reasons. And because of my lack of awareness with respect to the diet part of it, I actually thought I'm going to be very, very deficient. So for me, I believe that all animals deserve kindness and respect. And I do not believe in differentiating them based on what is food and what is not. So I felt I will be deficient in a lot of nutrients. And was that the case when I turned vegan? Of course not. So let me talk of some of these nutrients with respect to a vegan diet and to the actual source of it so that we can break some myths. Now, it is believed even by some of the well-known physicians that I have spoken to that B12 is only available in meat and eggs. Now, B12 is actually produced by bacteria and not animals or plants. And this bacteria is often found in soil and unsanitized water. Now, due to the antibiotic overuse and pesticide, we are deficient of this in our gut as well as the soil where our farming is done. So this deficiency is going to occur irrespective of your diet. And the only reason a non-vegan, that is a meat eater, could actually have sufficient B12 is because the animals are regularly injected with B12. So rather than have a vitamin which is recycled in this manner, isn't it easier to have a simple tablet every day or have fortified foods? It's as simple as that. Now, the other myth is that only vegans are the ones who have vitamin D deficiency. Now, vitamin D from school days, we know that is the sunshine vitamin. We just require sufficient amount in the sunlight in order to allow our body to produce vitamin D3. Now, what is lesser known is that D2, which is equally effective, primarily comes from plant sources such as mushrooms. And D2 is often used to fortify foods, that too often non-vegan foods like milk. Did you think of that? So vitamin D is, of course, all that we need to ensure is that we have significant sunlight exposure. Otherwise, we can, of course, go ahead and take supplements. Now, omega-3 fatty acids, the first thing that comes to your mind are fish capsules, right? Did you know there are strong and healthy plant sources of omega-3, which also have additional functions such as a lot of antioxidative effect? So these products also tend to prevent dementia. The brain volume loss is lesser when you consume enough of these in various studies. So omega-3 fatty acids, you do not need fish capsules. In fact, many doctors are moving against all of this because of increased cardiac risk, prostate cancer, diabetes, and also has a proven increased risk of stroke while consuming fish oil capsules. Now, calcium, again, there are plenty sources of calcium which are far more effective in absorption than dairy products. Now, the most common myth that we know about veganism is, what about my proteins, right? Now, there is a popular myth that you require meat and poultry, especially if you're working out, or you require protein supplements. Now, let's remember the paleo diet, which often has been pushed by various quarters for achieving proper good health and good muscles. Remember, the original paleo diet followers were Stone Age people and no one lived beyond the age of 35. So are they plant sources of protein? Everything you see on screen does have protein. Legumes, whole grains, nuts. Let's think of protein in the form of amino acids, and all of these substances are going to give you a sufficient amount of protein. Look at the difference. With plant sources, you can actually have a good quality, cheap protein, which has less water consumption, no hormones, no steroid, no antibiotic, and along with a lot of fiber and no cholesterol. So essential amino acids is what is required for your body to form the protein that it requires. A simple combination of rice and dal can give you most of it. So think of food as a whole rather than this has leucine, this has protein, this has calcium. Now, soy, does it cause cancer? Of course not. Soy contains phytoestrogen, which is a plant-based estrogen that does not act in human bodies. So in fact, studies have shown that the risk of breast cancer reduces by 29% when you take high soy. So please do not be fooled by some of the myths that are around soya. So veganism and fitness is impossible. This has been covered again and again by the wonderful speakers before me. The strongest man in the world is vegan, and he's also fed up of the same question, where does he get his protein from? This is Scott Jurek, one of the legendary ultramarathoners in the world. He's been vegan for the longest time, simply for fitness. Now, why are people, fitness athletes, moving towards veganism? The core of it is recovery. So the muscle recovery is much faster, by which they can train better, and they're less prone for injuries on a vegan diet. I would highly recommend you to watch Game Changers to know more in this regard. And Venus Williams, of course, is one of the shining stars of vegan athletes. Now, a plant-based diet has benefits that can prevent cancer, and most of the reasons listed here also helps in quicker muscle recovery and removal of byproducts from the muscles. Now, a plant-based diet, we have seen that there is hardly a disease on the planet that the plant-based diet, lifestyle disease that is, that the plant-based diet cannot protect against or reverse. Now, all nutrients comes from plant, even the rare ones. The ones listed here are only found in plants, and you will not find a single animal source. So remember that all animal nutrient is simply recycled plant protein with added carcinogens, cholesterol, and toxins. Now let's talk whether plant-based is same as being a vegan. Now, a vegan diet, of course, excludes animal products. A plant-based diet could mean that you make sure that most of your plate is filled with plant-based food, but it may or may not include a small amount of animal products. A whole food plant-based diet also means that you subtract oils and highly processed food from your diet. Now, why do I have this picture? It's because being a vegan means that you follow the lifestyle of one that leads to zero animal cruelty, ideally. So you have shampoos, soaps, toiletries, cosmetics, etc. that we use on a daily basis. So one can just shop in a slightly simplified manner and ensure that you end up buying products that are vegan and cruelty-free. Why? Why do you want to use products of vanity that have subjected such poor, timid animals through all of these tests? And remember, it's not just rabbits, it's your favorite dogs and even cats. I would highly recommend you watch this very short film to know what goes on in the animal industry. Now, the products which are vegan and cruelty-free do also have far lesser chemicals than the products which are not, and they are as cost-effective also. And quite often, the packages are environmental friendly. Just a little bit of research in the initial days can help you to know what it is. Myth 7 is you're killing plants. Now let's remember that the land required to feed one person for a year is highest in a meat eater. So a significant proportion people go hungry every day. And in fact, we can actually shift most of these farmed cereals in order to feed those hungry people. Water resources, fresh water, etc. can be saved through a vegan diet. Now remember that pandemic does not occur only in wild markets. It also is important to remember most of the pandemics that have occurred till date have been through interaction of animals and consumption of meat. That's because of overcrowding and raising in filthy conditions in the farm we produced. Dr. Michael Greger actually has written a book in this regard in which he says that if you actually want to create global pandemics, you must raise farm factories. Now, do you think that one person cannot change anything? Now, this is what one person can do. If you go to the vegan calculator, in 1 day of a vegan diet, this is what the amount of water you saved, the amount of grains, the forest, this is the carbon footprint that you've had, and this is one animal life saved. Now, plant-based diet is simple to follow, it is substantial, and it is spiritually uplifting. Now, is vegan food expensive and restrictive? If any Indian person is going to tell me that, it's the most ridiculous comment one can think of. If you look at our everyday diet, it's extremely cheap, cost-effective, and healthy. Of course, these products are a little pricey, there's no denying it, but you do not need to include this on a daily basis. Now, this is definitely, if your personal choices have a victim, then we can no longer call it a personal choice. Did you know that you eat babies? Think about it. Now, all the animals want to live. Finally, all the moral traits that make us humans and mammals and everything are similar in them and in us. I especially thank all the people mentioned here for being extremely inspiring and also sharing their knowledge and making my journey as a vegan very fruitful. Thank you again.
Thank you, Anuradha, for the wonderful presentation. So anybody who wants to turn vegan or follow this diet, especially doctors, and you think that you'll have patients asking you some questions, go through this presentation again. The YouTube link is there, and you'll be able to answer some of the questions that your patients have. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to the entire team of MOSCON, Dr. Ragini ma'am, and the entire spearheading committee for allowing us to speak on this topic, which is close to our hearts. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.